let's go to the big question that I think that CEOs are trying to figure out, executives, everybody, we're all trying to figure out, is when we're going back to work and what it means to even go back to work, what that even looks like, to the extent that are we going back to work and it's like a time machine, it's like what life was like in February, or we're going back to work and we go back with gloves and masks on our way in and out, we go straight home, we don't go to a lunch place or a restaurant. Just tell us sort of, what does your timeline for, quote, going back to work look like, and what does going back to work look like?
Well, I think we should ask our parents what it was like in the summertime when polio was circulating, or if we have great-grandparents who are alive, what it was like when there were smallpox outbreaks in cities or even measles. It was a drag on society. There were certain things that didn't happen. There were things that were closed. I think we're likely to see changes in society where certain things, certain activity is suppressed as long as this virus is circulating. This virus isn't going away. I think in July and August it's going to collapse. But by collapse, I mean maybe we'll fall down to thousands of cases a day, perhaps hundreds, probably more than that, but sporadic outbreaks here and there, and then come back in the fall. This is going to become, as we've said, epidemic in the Southern Hemisphere and want to come back in the fall. And so the question is, how does life change? What activities don't come back or change? How do we change the nature of the way we do certain things until we can get to a therapeutic or a vaccine? A vaccine is 2 years away, a drug we can have by the summer or the fall, but we need to make a concerted effort to get it.
But put that in practical terms for people. You know, parents out there who have kids want to know, well, some want to know if their kids are going back to school. I think you've answered that before. You think not. Are they going to camp this summer, for example?
Well, school's out this year. Then camps are probably going to be closed. Maybe the camps will try to get a month in. I think that there's an attempt to restart school in the fall and have residential college. We're going to have to see if we can contain these outbreaks in the fall, because there's going to be outbreaks. But as soon as you have a large outbreak on a campus or in a school or in a local district, there's going to be an inclination to close the school within that district. This is unlikely to become epidemic nationally in the way it has now, but you're likely to see epicenters of spread. And when that happens, you're going to see cities get shunned, conferences and other activities curtailed in those environments where there is spread. This is going to be with us for a while, and we're going to have to learn to live with it until we can get to, again,
well, Doctor, that's the question. Do you think there will be conferences, there will be events, people will travel come this fall, they'll be getting on airplanes, or is that something you think is not going to be taking place?
I don't think anyone crowds 5,000 people into a conference room again for a long time. I think the marginal customer doesn't return to restaurants, theaters, the cruise industry, Disneyland. You know, you decide what you think the marginal customer is, but that's typically the marginal customer that gives those entities their profit margins. I think they're going to need to reassess that. I don't think people are going to be crowding onto cruise ships the same way. So can a boat go out 80% filled?
I'll make it more complicated for you. Do you think that people will travel for Thanksgiving? They'll travel to people's homes around the country as they do, or they'll go on vacation at Christmas time, given the timeline that you're now talking about. Because I'll tell you, the timeline you're talking about, I think, is a lot longer than the timeline that most Americans are thinking about, in large part based on the administration talking about this ending at the end of this month.
I think a certain percentage of the population is going to be more circumspect about crowding into tight spaces indoors. So you pick your activity. Going to a family's home for Thanksgiving isn't one of those activities I think that's going to be curtailed. Crowding into a restaurant for an adult population is. So there's certain things I think people are going to be much more circumspect about doing. Look, I think you're going to see people be more circumspect about why they get on. I will fly. I'm sure people will fly. But will you take that extra flight? Will you go on the trip that you really didn't need to take? That's what's going to change. You know, people are going to, I think the marginal activity that involves crowding into theaters, airports, small venues inside where there is spread is going to change, especially as these reports of outbreaks happen around the city, around the country. The idea that things are just going to snap back, we're going to forget about this is gone. That's not the case. This is going to be with us. I mean, remember, smallpox circulated for years, measles circulated for years, polio circulated for years before there was a vaccine, before it was vanquished, and it changed American life. Things changed. We did things differently. We're going to have to do things differently with the coronavirus circulating in the background. This is a fearsome pathogen. This is right up there with some of the most fearsome contagious diseases that we've dealt with. Things will change until we can get a vaccine to this. But an effective drug can deliver the same kind of opportunity, which is why I'm so perplexed why there's not a more deliberate effort to get it, because that we could have in the near term.